Almost our vice president. Mike Emanuel, thank you very much. Appreciate it. For more on this,
sir.
let's bring in Mehek Cooke, attorney and American Frontier Strategy CEO, and Caroline Sunshine, Trump 2024 Deputy Communications Director. Great to see you both. Mehek, you're an attorney. Minnesota has this law protecting whistleblowers, by the way. It's a pretty good law. It's straightforward. Many of the people who were at the Social Services Administration claim that Governor Walz was not only downplaying the extent of this fraud that they were seeing with their own eyes, but he was threatening them. This is what they claim, that he was actually threatening them to either ignore it or not to speak about it, saying if you do, you're going to face consequences from this office. If that's true, if that's found to be true, that he was making threats and it was against the whistleblower law, he's breaking the law, isn't he?
David, Governor Walz has broken so many laws sitting at the helm in Minnesota, and I think that we really have to launch a full-out investigation, not only for the fraud that's occurring today, which can amount to $9 billion, but we also have to look at what laws Walz broke, because he knowingly knew that individuals, including auditors, were stating that fraud is occurring, and it was predominantly within the Somalian community. And you know what Governor Walz was terrified of? The word racist. The minute people realized that there were brown people coming to our country and exploiting our laws and our welfare system, Walz was so scared of his own shadow that he turned his back on millions of Americans in his state. So we need to fully investigate this, and I think we have to audit America overall. We are looking at trillions of dollars that are spent, $1.6 trillion in welfare. What other states? Ohio, I know it's happening, and we have an attorney general here in Ohio that's starting an investigation. Every state should be auditing our welfare program because it is fraught with fraud and waste, and it's predominantly from the Somalian and some of these migrant communities that came here. We imported exploitation and fraud from these third world countries.
Well, Carolyn, meanwhile, the governor's just trying to downplay it all. You heard that one comment that he made from Mike's report, but he's also on X posts putting out pictures of himself in an easy chair sitting next to a Christmas tree. Everything is fine. Pay no attention. But again, according to the social workers who saw the fraud happening, and these were seasoned veterans, these were government workers who'd seen it before, for goodness sakes, I mean, it was pretty clear. And if he was threatening these workers, that he not only broke the law, but then you also have Ellison, the attorney general, who apparently was caught on tape downplaying any problems to these fraudsters that they were having, saying, don't worry, we'll kind of take care of it. And apparently a couple of them sent some campaign contributions his way. It was more than just ignoring the problem. There was a complicity here, no?
Oh, yeah. And David, it's exactly what you said. You said, thank God this guy didn't become vice president. I mean, Tim Walz was on the vice presidential ticket with Kamala Harris. I think back to that because I remember, being on the campaign and talking about how at the time we knew Tim Walz wasn't fit to serve as vice president. And now we definitely know he's not fit to serve as governor of Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. He might not survive this scandal. We'll see how that goes. But the magnitude of the fraud Mehek was mentioning, $9 billion. So Tim really wants everybody to believe that there was $9 billion worth of fraud going on in his state, and he had no idea it was happening. That is either gross negligence or you are absolutely lying. For reference here, $9 billion worth of fraud is the size of an entire industry. The U.S. theatrical release movie market this year brought in $9 billion. If the fraud is now the size of an entire industry. And in fact, if it was a business in Minnesota, that fraud would be one of the top 20 largest companies in that state.
Yeah.
And I also agree with Mehek mentioning, everyone, it has nothing to do with racism. 90% of the fraud, it has been confirmed, was committed by people of Somali descent. And what's really tragic to me about the state of Minnesota, actually, is I think to understand the scope of this fraud, too, you have to understand a piece of legislation called the Refugee Act of 1980 that was signed into law by Jimmy Carter. It changed the way that the United States took in refugees, and it said that the United States has a moral obligation to take in refugees from the most burning parts of the world. And Somalia met that criteria. And so in the 90s, prior to 1990, Minnesota didn't have a Somali population. They came here as refugees under that law. And what's particularly sad is Minnesota was actually specifically chosen as a haven for those refugees because it was known for having law-abiding citizens,
Right.
excellent job opportunities,
Well, and it does.
great industry.
It does have law-abiding citizens, but Mehek, I think it goes far beyond the Somali issue. I mean, yes, that community took advantage. There was also a Somali community apparently in Maine that was doing similar things, but the Medicaid fraud is happening all over the country in all different kind of communities because it's an easy target. It's a target that is being made easier by the amount of money that the federal government is putting into it, matching the state funds and expanding Medicaid as kind of a sidecar of Obamacare. And that gets to the point. Is this an example of what the Democrats are trying to continue as we go into January, when they're going to demand an expansion of Medicaid, further expansion of Medicaid, and all of these subsidies that began in the COVID era?
Well, you nailed it, David. I mean, Ro Khanna is on record stating that we were giving illegals some subsidies when we looked at Obamacare. So we know that's already happening. But if we just look at Medicaid overall, we know that there has been so much exploitation, and it's not just the Somalian community, it's the Nepalese community, it's the Bhutanese community, because again, we didn't look at individuals when we were importing them and allowing them to come to our country. We didn't look at their asylum cases. We allowed third world countries that are the most corrupt to become imported into the United States of America. Ohio, another state, the greatest state that has law-abiding citizens, now has the second largest Somalian population. And there's so many providers telling me today that they have been pushed to rubber stamp paperwork so they can allow home health networks to essentially operate. That means a family member can make up to $90,000 for one family member that qualifies. You add another parent, so two parents, that's $180,000. Now you add in-laws. I mean, you're looking at massive fraud. And I go back to the same number, $1.7 trillion.
Yeah.
We have to start auditing the entire country. It's not just Ohio and Minnesota.
The point is, Americans don't want their hard-earned tax money going to things that are amenable to fraud, that can turn into fraud very easily. We've seen examples of it here. I guarantee you're going to see examples of it in New York, because I know some legislators here who are saying the same thing. It's happening in the whole country, and that's exactly the plan of the Democrats, to expand it into something that would turn into socialized medicine. And frankly, I don't think Americans want any more of that. Mehek and Carolyn, great to see you. Have a wonderful Christmas, New Year's. Appreciate you coming on.